Hello. Wow, 123. We're early birds. Cool. If you guys have any questions, just feel free to drop them into the Q&A button at the bottom. You should see it right at the bottom. Or feel free to drop a chat on the sidebar. There should be a chat button and a Q&A button at the bottom. But can you guys hear me pretty okay? Like, say if you can write it in the chat and let me know that you guys can hear me. Awesome. Great. Cool. Awesome. Good to hear. So we'll wait. We'll give it a few more minutes to let more people join in. But just to let you guys know, I'm Priscilla Castro. I'm the brand partnerships manager here at Planoly. So really excited to do our first webinar online. Usually we've done these on Instagram Live. So they're usually like 15-minute, really short. But this one we actually like set a presentation for you guys, and we'll be doing these every month. So if there's any questions you guys may have in terms of topics that you want us to cover, anything from Instagram to how to grow, what hashtags to use, all of that, let us know. We're always willing to like create educational material for you guys. That way, we can give you the best information possible. So that way you can always grow on Instagram. So, okay. Somebody can't hear, having problems to join by audio. So you have to, when you're joining, you actually have to allow the audio, allow Zoom access to your audio. So if you can't, also if you can't join us throughout the entire length of this webinar, or joining in later, we'll be doing a recording. We're actually recording this now, and we'll be sending out a replay, and we'll also be uploading to YouTube. So, okay. Oh, good. Joey, definitely saw what you wrote. Mute the chat. You can actually hide the chat too, so you don't have to see it. If you click the chat button at the bottom, it should hide the chat, so you don't have to see it. Let me type this out. Okay. All right, so we'll give it one more minute. Oh my God, we have over 500 people joining. That's wild. Usually our IG lives are like maybe 200 people, but this is really awesome. So yeah, and it's good that all you guys are early because this is limited to the first 1,000 people. And then for those who can't join afterwards, we'll have a replay, but everybody who's here is actually able to ask questions, and I can answer your questions live. So awesome. So yeah, again, if you have questions, don't put them in the chat. They'll get lost. Just go ahead and drop them in the Q&A button in the bottom. And then after the webinar, I'll go ahead and answer as many as I can. This will last about 40 minutes. So even if you are not able to join for the 40 minutes, just feel free to drop in your questions. I'll try to answer them at the end. And also leave your Instagram handle if you can. So that way, like maybe we can respond back to you on Instagram and give you your right answer. So, all right. So let's dive right into it. Give me 1 second as I, cool. All right, so let's get started. So I'll be sharing my screen. All right. So again, my name is Priscilla. I'm the brand partnerships manager here at Planoly. And as our first webinar, we're going to go ahead and dive into kind of like the fundamentals of success on Instagram. This is kind of like the basics that we base off of our success and our tactics, and making sure that everybody is right on track when you're creating a strategy. So first things first, like Instagram is constantly throwing curveballs at you, especially at all of us. new updates, new features. And of course, like the one thing that like is always dreaded is the algorithm. People always feel like there's like never a way to really get around the algorithm, but the first thing to do is really understanding it. So for us, like, we don't think that the algorithm is much of like a hindrance. If anything, it allows us, it makes us work a little bit harder to understand our audience, but it also kind of like lets us understand our audience a little bit more. And by understanding them a little bit more, we're creating content that is a little bit more tailored for them. So it's not all that bad. So first things first, in understanding the algorithm, it's broken down into a few easy steps, or a few different categories that Instagram's product lead, Julian Gutman, has broken down. So this is kind of the criteria, starting off with user interest. So this goes by the interest that you have on certain profiles that you comment with, kind of like based on the hashtags and the accounts that you're following, what you comment with. And it also goes down to, Instagram actually has machine learning. So it actually analyzes the type of content that you interact with. So it kind of like recognizes based if like there's anything, for me, for example, if you look at your Discover feed, even for yourself, you'll see that you'll start getting a lot of the same images that you interact with. So if for me, it's a lot of like RuPaul's Drag Race and a lot of makeup. So for me, I'll always get those types of content recommended within my Discover feed. And the same goes for your actual feed. So based on the content that you interact with the most, you'll see that kind of prioritized to the top. Then next you go with post recency. So based on a lot of people complaining about, that the algorithm wasn't chronological, Instagram has tried its best to make it chronological. And actually, based on user interest, it'll also top, kind of like filter to the top the most recent content rather than you seeing like posts from like a week ago or 2 weeks ago. It'll actually try to be a little bit more chronological. Not fully, of course, there's still an algorithm, but it's actually basing it off of post recency. Then next, it's relationships. So this is the relationship you have with certain profiles. So based on how much you comment on certain profiles, how much you tag them, how much you like them, even if they're tagging you and you're tagging them on certain posts, then even like within your own content, then Instagram is going to take that into consideration and really take into account the good relationship that you have with certain accounts. Then next is going to be visit recency. So this goes into how often you open Instagram, and your feed will dictate what your content is based on your feed, and it'll show you the best post since your last visit. So even if you refresh your feed or if you close out your feed, you'll start seeing the best post based on the last user interest, post recency, and relationship. You'll see more of that content to the top every time you open the app. And then the next one is following. So this actually, for Instagram, they really want to take in consideration the amount of followers amount of accounts that you're following. Of course, if you're following over 2,000 accounts, like it's not going to show you everything up to the top. So it really tries to rank based on all these different other factors, how it's going to like categorize all the content to the top of your feed. So of course, if you like continue scrolling all the way to the bottom, you'll see most of all, if not all, the content that you follow. But again, it's also going to take into consideration all these other factors when it's ranking the content to the top, based on your followers. Of course, there's going to be people that you follow that you don't interact with the most, so they're going to go ahead and rank it all the way to the bottom. And then, sure enough, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see it. But of course, when you go into the top, it'll base it off of all the other factors. And then the next one is app usage. So Instagram is actually going to like kind of studies how long you spend on the app. So it's very similar to recency, but it pays attention to how long or how much time you spend on the app within sessions. And within those sessions, it's actually going to try to curate the best content based on all these other factors for every time you visit the app. So that's kind of the breakdown with the algorithm. Of course, there's other factors, but this is kind of what is broken down, and this is coming right from Instagram. So now that we know that, taking that into consideration, here's how we'll take it for steps for success. So Number one, I think, especially if you want to kind of like really resonate with your audience and kind of want to build that deeper connection, so that way they're always engaging with your content. They're always like building that relationship, especially like within the algorithm factor, that relationship is like very, very key. You want to give your brand a personality. So giving your brand a personality not only helps you like develop a deeper connection, but it actually allows your audience to know that there's somebody behind the screen that they can feel connected with. And it's so important to really humanize your brand, show the personality behind it, because once you start doing that, you'll grow your brand engagement as well. So a very good example is Joy Cho of Oh Joy. Like, yes, she's a brand, but you know that there's a person behind the brand, and her persona is very much tied into who she is as a businesswoman, but also as a brand. So people, that's why she's grown to over 400,000 followers and has had like an insane line with Target, and it's been very successful because of the person behind it. So definitely work on giving yourself a brand, or giving your brand a personality. And when you're building a brand personality, you have to ask yourself like two very important questions. One, who is that person? And two, how does that person relate to your audience? With these two things, you really have to understand like, okay, I need to create a personality that really resonates with my audience, and it's not somebody who's just feels kind of distanced to who they are and really speaks to their level. So the brand behind the person behind the brand should always speak to your audience and not talk down to them. So there's many brands that I've seen that kind of don't really know how to talk to their audience and kind of talk down to them. And that's just not a way to do it, especially with a lot of, if you're like catering to millennial audiences, they want to talk like level within a brand that talks with them, not talks down to them. So once you really understand who your audience is, you can define what your tone and the voice is of your brand, and see how your brand personality can be relatable to your target based on their tones, interests, and even dislikes. So with that, it kind of like lets us into really understanding who your audience is. And that leads us into step 2, identifying your niche and knowing how to talk to your audience's language. So Instagram gives us so many tools to really, really, truly understand who our audience is, from, you know, even engaging within social, from comments to DMs, but also with Instagram stories, like everything Instagram has like made with updates, it really helps us truly interact with our audience and understand them a little bit more. But it's also important to not just categorize your audience into like a wide segment. It's really important to understand what their niche is, and make sure that you can like actually cater the language that you're making for them to be as specific as possible. So you can identify the characteristics and interests that are specific to your niche audience. So take time and like, you know, doing your research, and you can do, like I said, you can do this right from Instagram. And a perfect example is how Away does it. They are very interactive with their audience, and they take advantage of using the stickers on IG. And then like another example too is, went ahead a little bit too far. Okay, here we go. Sorry. Another one is looking at who your followers are following on Instagram. So once you kind of see who they're following, you could kind of see the common denominators and based on who they're following, and kind of like set a tone of what their likes are, what their interests are, and even based on who they like, what their interests are. If it's like something aspirational, then you can kind of like base your content off of that and based on like those common denominators. And then the next one is identifying those hashtags. So this is a question that I got a lot of emails from a lot of you guys when leading up to today on what hashtags to use. So my like key thing is to really understand what the hashtags are for your niche. So you have to kind of dig. There's no hashtag that is going to be like, oh, I'm like a business and I just need to know what the 10 hashtags are for my brand. You have to do this for yourself and really understanding what your hashtags are, because I could tell you that Insta Good, Insta Fam, Insta Photography are like the best hashtags to use, but they're not relevant to your niche. You really have to like dig in and dive into your niche and what those hashtags are. So really understand that okay, there's like my niche, and like the hashtags that my audience uses are these hashtags. You have to mix them in with the niche hashtags, the ones that are relevant to the content that you're like posting. So they have to be very specific to what you're posting, and then use some broader hashtags that are still relevant to your content and to your like demographic and community, but that are not as wide as the ones that like are like Insta good, Insta fam, like those ones that have like over 1 million plus tags. Those are gonna kind of like fall into a pool with a bunch of people that don't really fall into your audience. So you wanna make sure that whatever hashtags you use are always very relevant to the audience that you're aiming for. So that's kind of the rundown on hashtags. And of course, pro tip, make sure that you use all the tools within stories. Like Instagram really wants you to use all the tools that they have, from, stories, stickers, from questions, polls, and I think it's the emoji slider. And then also with IG Live, IGTV, when you use all of those, it really grows your engagement. So make sure that you use it strategically. And then step 3 is really treating Instagram as a two-way street. So you just posting content and thinking that it's engaging and expecting for all the likes and comments and shares to come in because it speaks to them is kind of doing half the job. You have to make sure that you put in the time and effort to really, really engage with your audience. And it's a non-negotiable. You should always, always, always be engaging with your audience and never, ever leave them on red. So engagement, 100%, you have to. That's half of the job, is creating amazing content and actually researching for your audience. And then a half is engaging with your audience. So here's a few tips on engaging with your audience and getting new eyes back to your page. So number 1, always make sure to respond to all your DMs from your audience. This doesn't go for any spam comment DMs or anything like that. One second. I don't know why this isn't that. Okay, we'll just leave it here. But make sure that you always respond to your DMs from all your audience. Don't have to like respond to any spammy or anything like that. I prefer to report it because I want to keep the integrity of the Instagram space without any like spammy people. So just always make sure to respond to all DMs. Of course, you have to understand that Instagram is one of your best customer service tools. So make sure that you always, always respond to all of your audience and all your customers. And then next, always like and reply to all the comments on your content from your audience. Always, they are commenting because they expect some type of engagement from you. So make sure that you always respond. You're building a conversation with them. You're asking questions from them within your content. So make sure that you're always replying back and building up on that conversation. And then always like content from the audience that already follows you. So if you know that you have followers that are always engaging with you, or if you look at your follower list and then you want to engage with people within your following, go ahead. It's always so great, at least for me, like when I follow a brand and then they might not follow me, but they might always like my content and they might like comment back. Like that tap, like that little tap of acknowledgement that they know that I'm a faithful follower is always so great, and it builds brand loyalty. So want to make sure that you're always tapping in on that too. And then of course, like and comment on content that is relevant to the hashtags that you're using and come from profiles that are fit your target audience. So always kind of building into that cycle of the content that you're already tapping into with the hashtags, and make sure that you're always speaking to the community, even if they might not follow you. It will always help bring new eyes back to your page. And then of course, look at your competitors and comment on the people that like and comment on their page. So even if they have followers, you should always tap into that audience, because if you have a similar audience that you're trying to tap into, you should always like engage with them, because they might not have a great engagement strategy. And this is where you can win them over. If you go ahead and comment and like on their photos, or give them that tap that acknowledges them that the other brand hasn't, you might get them as a follower and might help them become a faithful, help them build that brand loyalty with you instead. So make sure you take advantage of that too. And then step 4, always post quality content. People always like tell me, how many posts do I need to post a day? Like there should not be a quantity number tied to the content. It's always quality over quantity. Quality is always key. So if you're the type of person that you're like very stressed out about, posting 4 times a day because that's your quota that you have for your brand, but it's already like 7 o'clock and you don't know if you've already missed that mark, but you need to find like some type of content because that's your quota for the day, I would suggest don't post it, because then you're going to post something that is kind of like not fully executed to be on up to par with the rest of the content that you've planned out. So that's just not the way to do it. You want to make sure that any content that you post is always up to par with your brand standards, the quality that your audience expects from you. And also studies have shown that if you post more, people are going to see it like way more spammy. And it's not, sometimes people think that if they post more, then it's going to like boost up their content within the algorithm. And that's not the case. It's actually like the less engagement that you get within those posts, the less it's going to be boosted up within the algorithm. So it's probable that not everybody's going to see those posts, even if you're posting like 5 times a day. And also there's been brands that I've seen that like post 5 times, 6 times a day, and I get so overwhelmed that I just like unfollow. So make sure that you're not overwhelming your audience and just give them the best content possible that they expect from you. So make sure that everything is like up to par, something like this. And it also shows like kind of falls into the same aesthetic. Something that they expect, always make sure that it's always up to par. So these are just a few ideas of how like content that actually flows within your grid, rather than just like posting whatever because you had to. It should never be like that. If you always feel like you're having to post something and it's not up to par, don't post it. Wait for another day or find something that is going to be posted better. And then you'll see that your likes and comments and your engagement is going to still stay up. So, which leads us into drafting your content calendar. So of course, we're an app that, we allow you to see your grid ahead of time within the feed, but we're also very analog. So if we're living in a digital world, we like to have some type of like paper to really understand what we have to plan for. Because for us, if you're not making your plan, you can't work your plan. So we recommend mapping out your content calendar for what it's going to look like on Instagram. So that way, when you plan ahead, you can also stay ahead. So for us, we like to break down the content into quarters so you can plan on what you need to prepare. So for example, we're in Q1, and if we know that by Q3, we need to have a fully executed photo shoot, or we need to get like certain influencers and bloggers, then we know that we have like Q1 and Q2 to prepare for that, rather than like scrambling towards the end of Q2 and thinking, oh man, we have to like get a bunch of people. You have to give yourself enough time. So that's why we love planning out quarters. And then the next one, once you're already have everything broken down into quarters, you can break it down into months. You can see your month at a glance, and you can actually prepare content for holidays, events, and important dates based on what you have already set for those certain quarters. And then finally, you break it down into a more granular level and plan it out. What you're going to post per week, down to the images and the captions that you'll need. And from here, you can gravitate everything that you've written on paper to like really understand what you're going to be putting on the Planoly grid. So, which leads us into curating a cohesive feed with Planoly. So for us, we want to make sure, especially when you're using Planoly, that you're making sure that your grid stays as beautiful and as presentable as possible. So you really have to think as your Instagram feed as your portfolio. It's the first thing that people see when they're hopping onto your profile. So it should give everybody who hops on an overview of what your brand is, along with what story it tells. So Pretty Little Fawn, who's a really important, like one of our favorite Planoly users and bloggers, she plans all her content within Planoly and has done it so well because she's taken the steps to truly understand what her feed is, what her brand style is, what her brand guide is, her color story, and we'll dive into that. So number one, you have to define your color story. So of course, Pretty Little Fawn has done a perfect example, is like a perfect example of really truly understanding what her color story is. And this is you understanding what colors fit your feed, what colors you're gonna be incorporating within the photos that you take, or edit, or graphics that you design. All of that should be incorporated into what defines your color story. And what's really exciting, if you got the the hour reminder for this webinar, there's actually a few links at the bottom of the email for a color story worksheet. So you can actually figure out what your color story is with our worksheet. And if you didn't get it, we'll actually be sending it afterwards in the recap email, and then also we'll be putting it on our blog. So we have a really fun worksheet for you guys, so that way you can really understand how you can find your color story and get your feed as beautiful as Pretty Little Courtney. And then the next one is creating a visual brand mood board. This is one of my favorite things because it's so easy to do. Like, you don't have to like do it on Pinterest. If you already have you don't have to do it on like Photoshop, but if you have Pinterest, it's really easy to do because then you can just pin images that kind of fall into the feed that you want to, or kind of like the feed that you want to emulate. So picking some of your favorite images to develop a visual brand guide or mood board to give you an idea of what your grid should look like. So this goes from tones, from colors, and even the way that photos are shot, based on lighting, no lighting, anything like that. You want to make sure that your visual mood board kind of represents what you want your feed to look like. And then, of course, once you develop your color story and your mood board, you can start planning out all your content. So when one of our favorite tools within Planoly is our placeholder tool. And this kind of gives you an idea of what color content you'll be using. So within Planoly, once you press the plus sign at the bottom, you can actually, instead of adding an image, you can use a placeholder tool. So that way you can select a color within the placeholder colors and then see that you need, okay, I'll need a pink photo color for Friday. Or I'll need a green photo for Saturday, whatever it is. You can actually set color blocks for what that color story is. And yeah, it makes it so much easier when you're planning out content. Makes it so much easier. So yeah, and then the next one is discovering your photo editing style. So it's really important that you define what filters and lighting, kind of define your editing style, so that way you always have a consistent editing technique that goes for all the photos that you upload to your grid. So for me, one of my favorites is Visco. So when you're using Visco to edit your photos, you can actually add one preset, or edit the preset to be kind of like a custom filter for you. But then you can actually copy the editing filter to all the other photos that you're uploading, and then you can just upload from Visco to Planoly when you're sharing on Visco. So it's a seamless integration. You don't have to like download them. You can just like go ahead and upload them to Planoly via Visco. So really, really simple, but of course, always making sure that you're discovering your editing style, making sure that it's consistent. And you can also download Visco packs that are kind of like fit a certain theme color. So that way, okay, I have to stick within these ranges to make sure that my grid looks okay. And then next one is defining what doesn't fit your brand guidelines. So now that you know what fits your brand guidelines, it's so important to understand what doesn't fit your brand guidelines. So if you know that certain lighting doesn't work for you, make sure you know what it is. So that way, especially if you have a social team and they're coming on board, you kind of want to give them like an idea of everything that your brand is and everything that your brand isn't. So that way there's no gray area as to, oh, I thought that this was going to be acceptable. No, we said it in the brand guidelines that this isn't like, what we expect. So make sure that when you are really defining everything within your brand guidelines, you have examples, like very, very clear examples of what's not acceptable. So of course, showing something that's not acceptable like this, like a very haphazard coffee mug with like a jacket draped over a chair, very messy, versus like something more aesthetically pleasing with bright lighting that's like kind of like a very nicely like aligned flat lay, like that's what's acceptable. So make sure you always set those guidelines for your brand, and it's going to lead you to success. So make sure that you outline that. So another question that we get all the time is how to create quality content. So people are always asking us like, yeah, I know like that I need to like have like, great photos and everything, but I'm still not getting that engagement. So for us, you have to ask yourself, like, how is your content, aside from being like a beautiful photo, of course, like everybody loves to see a beautiful photo, but is your content providing value to your audience? You really have to understand that your audience is following you, especially if you're a brand or an influencer. Your audience is following you because they can get something from you that they don't know, and you can provide to them. So a few examples that I like to ask ourselves is like, is your content tapping into your expertise? What type of expert are you that your audience really wants to kind of like tap into? Like you offer some type of expertise, you should into that and give them content that gives them that information. And then next is are you teaching or informing your audience on something that they may not know about or may want more information on? If you're a brand, how are you giving them more information about your product that, that can help them use your product a lot more? A prime example is us doing this right now. We're doing webinars and providing you value with our content to show you how to use Instagram better and how to use Planoly better. So this is kind of like an example right here. But even if you're a blogger, like something that I see all the time is like gift guides. I always want to see like bloggers always know what to use, especially when it comes, like I'm obsessed with makeup bloggers. So I always like look for the new things that makeup bloggers might know way ahead than I might know. So I might look into them first before I like look to anybody else. So tapping into that expertise and providing them information. And then are you teaching your audience something you're knowledgeable about? So for example, how-tos, tutorials, infographics, anything like that are always valuable and always very, very shareable. So you want to tap into that shareability too. And then providing your audience with advice from expert guests. So even if you're not able to provide them that information, it's always like really great to tap into like the people that you know that might provide your audience with some type of expertise that they might not have had with another, different media channel or a brand. So not only does this like help your audience give them new information, but if you're tapping into somebody like an expert guest that's a blogger and they have like a pretty big following, you are also able to widen your reach with your audience if you ask them to share their content that they've written for you as an expert guest. So you're killing two birds with one stone, giving your audience that information and also broadening your reach to a brand new audience that might not have known about you already. And then the next one is tapping into positivity and cultivating positive emotions. Is your content giving them that positivity? And this is not to get all hippy dippy, but I feel like, and especially if you follow our newsletter, we put out a newsletter this week about kind of like tapping into your mental or like cultivating mental health when you're on social media. And especially this year with it being January, I feel like a lot of people have kind of been conscious of unfollowing things that make them feel bad or make them feel negative. So this is a really great example as to why meme accounts do so well, because people want to like follow for the LOLs. So you kind of want to, positivity always triggers some type of like really good feeling and will trigger it into a way that goes into manifest into likes and comments and even shares. So if you can give that to your audience, you will see that your engagement is going to like skyrocket. So go ahead and tap into positivity and cultivating emotions. Your content, to put it down very like simple, your content should always be able to like uplift and inspire your audience and also make them like smile and laugh. So why not give them that? And then of course, are your photos high res and best quality as possible? There's been a few brands that I've seen that like do not, for some reason, they just upload the most low res photos for some reason, and I don't know why. That shouldn't be like, there should not be any reason why you're uploading low res photos. If that's the case, just wait to post a better picture or wait to get like the original or whatever it may be. Make sure that your photos are always high res and best quality as possible. And also, are your captions free of any typos and bad grammar? I've also seen brands who, for some reason, I know that they have a social media team, but for some reason, their social media team does not revise their captions, and there's a typo every week. And you will see that people will comment on like pinpoint a little typo and will drag it, like will comment only about the typo. And you don't want to be a brand like that. I always recommend using Grammarly. So if you're editing your captions on Planoly, you should always revise them on Grammarly to make sure that they're top notch. There should be no excuses for typos, unless it's like slang, then that's okay. But bad grammar, typos, don't. Make sure that it's free of that. And then for us, a way to make content much easier is planning content buckets. So content buckets are basically categories of content that you have scheduled for different days. So if you have like, like a positivity Monday post and then like a follow Friday post, you know that those are your content buckets that you need to have like ready for every week. So these are a great way to also tap into user generated content. So when you're really engagement from your audience, you want them to go ahead and like tag you, use your brand hashtags, anything like that. You want to make sure that with content buckets, you can take advantage of that. And a really great way to do that is by using the Discover feature within Planoly. And you can actually look for hashtags and see, like, look through content that kind of matches your aesthetic, matches what you're looking for based on your content buckets and your brand guidelines. And you can just go ahead and click it and add it to your grid very easily. It doesn't have, you don't have to save photos or anything. It just goes straight to your grid. And then a few more tips to encourage engagement from your audience. You always have to have some type of call to action that really kind of brings in your audience to be part of the brand conversation. So make sure that you always like lead with a call to action or CTA, and always invite them to, like, give their comments, questions, anything like that, or even to click the link in your bio to learn more, anything like that. Always drive a call to action. And of course, always encourage your audience to share their own content and ask them to share your branded hashtag for a chance for you to rebrand them. So this kind of dives back into the content buckets. So that way, hey, we're like doing our regram Monday. Make sure that you tag us and use our hashtag for a chance to be regrammed. And once you actually start regramming them, then people will feel a little bit more encouraged to be like, oh, they might feature me, so I'm going to go ahead and like hashtag them. Brands that do this really well, Glossier and Away, do this so well because most of their content is user-generated content, and that's why they've done so well on social. So make sure to tap into that. And then, of course, always harness the power of the call to action by leading with a question within the caption or something that allows your audience to voice their opinions and share their stories. You want to kind of leave the comment section as like a community forum. So make sure that you can actually build on a conversation there rather than just like tell them, oh, click the link in bio, or make sure to tag your friend or whatever. Like, make sure that you can learn so much more about them to tailor better content for them if you can continue driving that conversation within the comments. And then, of course, using all of Instagram's tools. Instagram wants to make sure that, and I already said this before, but Instagram, the more that you use all of Instagram's tools, the more that your engagement will go up. So not only that, it'll develop a better connection with your audience, and you'll get to know them so much more. Like it's kind of like having a survey monkey within Instagram if you use all the tools. So first things first is the bio and the link in bio. So by having a really great bio and link in bio, you are already kind of like standing out from the rest. So of course, add all the details that describe who you are, your specialty, what you offer, your location, and where your followers can reach you. It should be very easy for your followers to already understand who you are based on your bio. And also, when you're adding your name, you want to make sure that you include any keywords that are relevant to how you want people to search you. So that goes down to like expertise. For example, like I could have Priscilla Castro, brand strategist or brand partnerships manager within my name, and that will actually show up within the Instagram search when you're looking at people. So if you're looking up for like brand strategist, people who have brand strategist within their name will show up within the search. So you kind of, if you want to be found like that, then you will you should include your title or your expertise within your name. And then, of course, don't limit yourself to just one link in your bio. Use Planoly. We have a great feature called Shop Link that allows you to create your entire Instagram as a clickable feed and drive to various websites. So if, for example, you know that you want to drive to a certain blog post or a certain website, if you're doing affiliate links, then you can go ahead and connect those links to certain posts within your feed. And we create kind of like a mock Instagram. So that way, if you tap on a picture, then it'll drive you to that link. And a great example that does this is Refinery 29. They actually use Planoly. And if you go to their Instagram and you click on the link in their bio, then they'll have a mock Instagram feed, and it'll, if you click it, if you click a specific post from their Instagram feed, it'll drive you to certain blog posts that they have driven out to. So this is a great way to drive way more traffic, aside from just like using stories to drive back to your site. And then if you're a brand, you can use Shop Link to make your Instagram shoppable. So you can upload your products within Planoly, so that way customers can shop from anywhere within your feed, and you can actually share your personalized URL link, not just to your Instagram bio, but you can share it to your email, to your website. And we also have a widget where you can actually share it on your website, so that way your Instagram is clickable right from your website. And then, of course, using stories. So, of course, stories really shows the unfiltered and unedited version of your brand that can show people how relatable you can be. And then that goes back to giving your brand personality. Stories is a great way to show your brand personality. It's really important to tap into that. And of course, for those of you who are verified or over 10K, you have the ability to use the swipe up link within stories. So this is a way to drive way more traffic to certain sites. If you don't have this option, then I definitely recommend using Planoly's Shop Link. But of course, with using stories, you can go ahead and drive to any websites, any of your recommendations, or even your affiliate links. And then, of course, you can, stories is only available for 24 hours, but you can extend the life of those stories by creating a highlights reel within your Instagram page. So say, for example, if you're like a blogger and you did some of your favorites, winter favorites, you can create a highlight reel within your stories, and for every piece that you shared, you can have a swipe up link, and you can extend the life of all those links by sharing on your stories. So everybody who didn't catch it within those 24 hours can go ahead and see it anytime within your highlights. And then, of course, use stickers like the geotag sticker and the user tag sticker to get more views outside your following within stories. So if you're at an event or anything, or if you're at a certain location, and if you tag a location, you'll see that more people will actually start seeing your stories aside from your, regular followers. And that's just more way to get more people to view your stories. And then, of course, use the questions, emoji slider, and the poll stickers to understand your audience even better. And use all of that as research, all that feedback as research. This is how you can really, truly understand who your audience is and get to know them so much better. And even that, like aside from just like understanding them, you can let them interact with your content. I've seen a few bloggers who actually let their audience dictate what content they'll be sharing, or say what outfits they'll be using, based on the poll feature and even the questions. So make sure to use it not only as research, but also to make social media 10 times more interactive. And then, of course, using IG Live. So another way to show that unedited and unfiltered version of your brand, where you can actually sit down with your audience and answer any of their questions. This actually, I feel like there's a new feature now where you can actually make IG Live as just a Q&A session, so that way your audience actually knows that they're have to ask questions. So make sure you tap into that. And then, of course, IGTV. If you have more like polished long format video content that you want to share with your audience, you can share it there on IGTV. And then any content that you've already like created for YouTube or say like Facebook Watch, you can actually repurpose it and create it for IGTV in the vertical format. And it's good to try out. I mean, we're still trying to learn a lot about IGTV since it's fairly new, but I think it's very well worth, testing out and trying out for your audience. And then, of course, you have to get comfortable with your numbers. So we definitely recommend using the Planoly Analyze tool and also Instagram Insights if you have a business account. This is the one tool that will help you truly understand the demographics behind your audience, from location to gender to down to like when is your audience most active on the app. So that way you know, okay, my audience is most active at 3 p.m. on Monday. So I know that I need to post content at that time, but also engage at that time. So make sure you really get familiar with those numbers and also understand what is your best performing content and keep track of that. So also keep track of your worst performing content. So that way you know that you don't have to, or like stay away from content that didn't perform so well, and use that kind of like as a case study or and let it navigate your future content strategy. So of course, it's important to understand that when using all these fundamentals within social, it's going to take a lot of testing. You have to be patient, and it's going to take some time. You'll do you might do great within January, and then you'll see that some of the content in February didn't do so well. But it's really important to truly understand what works best, what works best, and what doesn't work as well. See what works best for your brand, because everybody's audience is different. Everybody's hashtags are different. Everybody's like time on Instagram, best performing times on Instagram are different. So it's just a lot of testing. This is what works best for your brand. But with that said, that kind of wraps up this webinar, and we'll just go ahead and dive into questions. So let me check really quick. All right. Let me pause the share. Cool. All right, let's go all the way to the top. All right. So yes, if you're just joining now or you joined late, there will be a replay of this. So we'll go ahead. Oh, sorry, let me answer live. So yes, if you are, let me see. Okay, there we go. If there is a replay, if you joined late, there will be a replay of this. So no worries, you'll be able to see this right afterwards. And then Debbie, oops, sorry. There's so many questions coming in that I'm trying to like stay on the scroll. All right, oh my goodness. Debbie, I have an account that was free and then paid for my other account. Can I move? Oh, sorry, it's so hard to keep track when there's so many questions coming in. Okay, can I move what I did in the first account to the second account just to work from there, or would I have to start over? If you'd like, I don't have the answer for that, but if you'd like, you can go ahead and email support@planoly.com and we can go ahead and get that all figured out for you. Great. Okay. Whoa, this is so many questions coming in. Okay. Okay. Do you have to use the same filters on each picture? I can't seem to master a visually consistent feed. Thanks for doing this. So Christy, I would recommend trying to use the same filters for each picture, especially if you're trying to, stay on your color story. But it doesn't come down to just like the filters that you're using. It also comes down to the types of colors that you're shooting within the photo, the types of lighting. You want all that to be consistent. So sometimes if you're using the same filter, it's not going to translate well if you're shooting different lighting or shooting different colors within the photos. So you want to make sure that you start off with kind of like the same lighting and the same type of colors that you're shooting, and then move it onto the filters. You want to make sure that you're using the same filters but also adjusting it accordingly. So I would say that. Okay. Oh my goodness, there's so many. Natalie, how do you put multiple pictures in an Instagram story? So you can actually do this within Planoly. When you're planning on Planoly, you can actually upload multiple images within stories to schedule them out, but then you actually have to schedule them. So If you've already shot any photos ahead of time, go ahead and plan them up to Planoly. And then if you want to, say, create a collage of photos, I would recommend kind of like using Photoshop to collage all of them together, but you do have to upload one at a time. With videos that are longer format, say if you have like a 30-second video, Instagram will automatically cut down a video for you. So that way it's like 15-second blocks, but you cannot upload multiple photos at a time within Instagram story. You have to do it one by one. Okay. Oh man, so many questions. Oh, sorry. I almost had a question and then, okay. Oh man, sorry guys. They're all coming in. Oh, okay. From Zara, how many stories are optimum per day? I would recommend no more than 8 stories per day. It can get, if you're posting more than like 10 or 12 stories a day, it can get a little spammy. And I promise you, people will just tune out. You have to pay attention to your kind of like your drop off rate. So especially if you're posting, like, say you post 12 stories a day and you kind of revisit that in the 24 hours and you see how many people have dropped off from the first story to the last story, you have to really keep track of that and make sure that you can see how many people have kind of tuned off. And when you see like a drastic spike, then make sure that, okay, 8 stories, most people stay watching through all of them. And then by story 9, people drop off, then that, you know, that is your sweet spot. So make sure that I say stay 8 or less. 5 to 8 is like a pretty safe spot. Okay. Oh man. Okay. Uh, I just saw a really great question. Oh man. Okay. Miriam, what does the blue check mark next to the name on an account mean? That means that you're just verified by Instagram. There's actually a way for you to sign up to be verified. Instagram is taking applications for it. So that way, if you meet a certain category, then Instagram will kind of see if you're available to be, or if you're able to be verified. But other than that, it's still a long process. There's no easy way to get verified. A lot of people ask for this all the time, but the blue check mark just means that you're verified. Okay. Whoa, 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 whoa. Oh, okay. So Maria asked, when looking at who your followers are following, is there a streamlined process to approach this instead of looking at each of their accounts individually? So there is no streamlined way to do this. There used to be a while ago, but because of Instagram's API, which is kind of the permissions that they allow certain apps to tap into Instagram, they don't allow that. There were a few, I used to be a social media manager, and I used to have a tool that used to help me with this to understand what my audience's interests were. But because of the API, they've limited it so much that you can't actually do this anymore. So now you actually have to do it manually, which is a big bummer. Which is also the reason, because of the API, that's the reason why when you're tagging people within Planoly, you actually have to tag out their whole handle rather than like waiting for the auto fill to pop in their handle. So you actually have to do it manually. It's really frustrating, but I think like if you get like kind of like a sample audience of who you're trying to like base off of, and then see who the common denominators are within your audience, then you can kind of like track that manually. But for right now, it's just very manual. That's kind of like the way that I do it. It's a really annoying, but kind of the way you have to do it. Oh, right. Okay. Oh, somebody had said, okay, I saw a question. Oh, okay. Oh man, so many questions coming in. Oh, all right. Erin, what's the best way to use hashtags within stories to get seen by most relevant people? I would say make sure that you use like at least 5 hashtags within your story. And then I've seen some bloggers do this where they like minimize them. They actually make the hashtags super small and they just like put them in a corner, but it doesn't mean that it's hiding it away from like the other people that are looking at those hashtags. So it is still exposing you to the people that are using that hashtag or using stories within that hashtag. So just like make sure to hide them, that they're not taking up a lot of your video space, and doesn't look too overwhelming. So I would recommend doing that. Where did the question go? Oh man, I just lost it. Okay, here we go. There we go. All right. I'm gonna be answering a few more, and then again, if I don't get to all of these, there's like 157 questions, but feel free to DM us at Planoly. We'll try to answer as many as we can. Let me answer 2 more. I'll go ahead and try to find these. Oh man, the questions are just coming in. But again, I said if you are adding your question, make sure to add your Instagram handle, and I'll try to like get back to you on Instagram DMs. Okay, Sabrina, great question about color story. So do you have a stick to a specific color palette? Our IG channel does color tones by row, but doesn't limit itself with specific color palette for the whole feed. No worries. We do that same thing here at Planoly. If you look at our grid, we actually have like a color, kind of like a gradient. So people can expect that from us, that we'll be doing a color gradient, but it still looks cohesive. I think that if per color, you know that like the colors are going to stick in the same tone. I think like if you're doing various colors, it's great, but you have to make sure that like if you're doing like a soft millennial pink, then you're not going to put like a lime neon green that just like looks kind of like crazy. You want to make sure that when you look at it as a whole, it looks great to the eye. So if you're using soft tones, use soft tones. If you're using bright tones, use bright tones. But make sure that even if you're using a lot of colors, that they still fit in the same kind of like cohesive color story, rather than just like using 2 different colors. So I hope that helps. I'll do one more question. Okay, Naomi, what is that photo upload cap number for the free version of Planoly? So it is 30 uploads a month for a free version. For solo, you get unlimited posts a month, and that starts off at $9 a month. So I definitely recommend, if you're thinking, if you haven't used Planoly, if you're brand new or are still using free and you would love to like maximize your use of your content strategy with Planoly, I would definitely go ahead and start off with a solo plan. You can look at all of our pricing tiers on our pricing section within Planoly. And it goes if you're like a solo entrepreneur, or you're managing 2 Instagram accounts, or if you're a social media manager and you're managing multiple accounts. We also have plans for that too. So yeah, there's only 30 uploads a month within the free version. That goes also for stories and your grid. So you can only upload 30 stories and photos, videos, multimedia within Planoly a month. All right, one more. Okay. Oop. Victoria, what is Grammarly and where to find it? Grammarly is one of the best grammar tools. Actually, I remember using it in college a lot when I was trying to like make sure that my papers were done right and didn't have any typos or grammatical errors. But if you go to grammarly.com, it's free to use and you can just upload your content or whatever you've written up to Grammarly, and then it'll suggest anything based on like different wording, different spelling, anything, any grammatical issues, it'll go ahead and suggest that for you. So there is a free version. I think like if you want to go advanced and like really go the next level in editing your grammar, it's paid, but the free version works well. Oh, I saw another last question I think is really great. Melissa Berry, can you elaborate on content buckets? Do you store them in Planoly or in Instagram hashtags directly? So content buckets aren't necessarily something that we have like planned on Planoly. It's something that you have to know for yourself. So this is something that you would probably list out for yourself when you're planning out your content. So for Monday, I like giving you a broad example of Monday, I know I need to do a motivation Monday post. And that's what my audience is going to expect from me. So I'm going to go ahead and put a placeholder, a Planoly placeholder within my grid for Motivation Monday. I know that I need to post that on Monday. And then Tuesday, it'll be like, Transformation Tuesday, Wednesday, Wisdom Wednesday, or whatever. It doesn't have to be like a everyday kind of thing. It can even be anything like, people that inspire you, that that you're going to share on a Thursday. So you know that you need to have that content ready. So those, you can list out those for yourself when you have to post them. So that way, oh, okay, it's Thursday. I don't know what to post, but wait, it's like the day that I post inspirational quotes or people that inspire me. So I know I need to find something for that. It just makes content planning so much easier. So there's also sometimes hashtags that are applied to this. So if, for example, if you're doing Motivation Monday and you're looking it up within the Discover feature within Planoly, then you can find inspiration there. Either you can go ahead and add it from your grid, from the Discover feature within your grid, or you can kind of like see it, repurpose it, and then add it to your grid and make your own content. So I hope that helps. All right. So it's 1:30. It took an hour. Sorry I couldn't answer everybody's questions. There's currently 180 questions here. But again, thank you so much, everybody. I will try my very best to try to answer these afterwards. Again, if you just go ahead and DM us on Planoly, we'll go ahead and try to answer them all. But again, go ahead and stay tuned for the replay. We'll go ahead and send out an email after this. If not, it should be in your inbox by tomorrow. And make sure to look at the links in the bottom. There is the how to create your color story worksheet and also how to create your content calendar worksheet. So those will be very, very useful to look at this presentation with. And kind of like help you dictate your content strategy moving forward. And again, if you have any questions in using those or on this webinar, go ahead and let us know, and you'll see everything on the replay. But again, if you guys want me to stay on for like 10 more minutes, I will. If there's a raise of hands, I will. Oh my God, Lord. There's so many raised hands. Okay, great. I will stay on for 10 more minutes. Wow, okay. All right. So I'll go ahead and answer a few more questions. Wow, it like completely filled my screen of how many people wanted me to stay for 10 more minutes. Okay. All right, let me go back up because I answered a few questions. Wow, okay. All right, some people had questions about ShopLink. So, okay, so ShopLink. ShopLink is a feature, is an add-on that we have, and basically it is tailored for small business owners that sell products. So if you are a business owner and you sell, for example, jewelry, and you want, especially if you're not tied in with Shopify, we make your Instagram shoppable. So you can actually tag any products within your feed with the products that you already uploaded to Planoly based on your inventory. But it's not just limited to products. For example, like I mentioned, Refinery 29 uses this to drive links back to their website. So it essentially makes your Instagram shoppable. We give you a unique link that mocks your Instagram, and you choose what posts are clickable. And then from there, when people click the link in your bio, then you actually can either click on it to drive out to a website or to have them shop a product that it has been linked on the post. If you actually go to our Instagram, you'll see that we have shop link featured on there. So I hope that helps. And it's actually, you have to add it on. It's not free. I believe I have to double check on the pricing for you. But if you go to Planoly, actually, let me double check for you. Well, let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to get this answer question for you. All right, so ShopLink is, if you're on a monthly Planoly plan, is $50 a month. It honestly is one of the best tools to have especially if you're trying to drive much more traffic to your site. If you're a yearly, it is $40 a month. So if you're on a Planoly yearly plan, it's $40 a month on average for the whole year. So I hope that answers that question. But ShopLink is honestly one of the best tools to making sure that you drive as much traffic as possible to your site. Okay. Okay, great question from Sabrina. What are your thoughts on organic audience building or ad spending to grow your audience? Honestly, you have to do both. For me, I started out in social media back in 2012, and that was when I was managing accounts and growing them organically. Nowadays, you have to spend. It's with the algorithm, especially, this is the only way that you can actually reach more people. And I kind of think this is like how Instagram wants you to spend more money because of the algorithm. So it is spending more money, but you have to do it to reach your audience. And especially, like, the great thing with ads is that you can target to your specific audience. So it's not just like falling on deaf ears and like people that don't really kind of like resonate with your audience. You want to make sure that it's actually very, very targeted to your niche. So going back to really identifying who your niche is and making sure that you are kind of like going beyond your reach, because you can only tap into your audience so much to where it's like, okay, I'm giving them the same content. And with paid, like even Instagram ads, it's not just limited to that. You can actually do influencer paid influencer posts to grow your audience to a even bigger reach. But you have to do organic and paid simultaneously. It could have been done maybe 8 years ago, 7 years ago, but nowadays you have to spend money and invest in ads to grow your audience. So those are my thoughts on that. And then, okay. All right, really great question from Emily. I have heard of shadow blocking when it comes to hashtags. I have heard that using the same hashtags all the time will get you shadow blocked. Is this true? If you create brand hashtags that you use every post, could you get shadow blocked from this? So shadow banning is a myth. It's not real, but there is hashtags that you cannot use. And Instagram actually has a post on like certain hashtags that you can't use. And some of them are very weird and some of them are very like obvious. If I have the link for that, I will try to send it after this, but there's no such thing as shadow banning. Essentially, what Instagram wants you to do with your hashtags is making sure that the thing is, like, if you post the same hashtags again and again and again and again, it's going to get spammy, and it's not going to get like that it's going to fall on the same people or kind of like be repetitive. But Instagram wants to make sure that you're using the hashtags that are relevant to the content that you're posting. It doesn't, if you're using hashtag, we use hashtag Planoly on all of our posts. That doesn't mean that we're going to get shadow banned if we use it all the time, but you have to make sure that you're diversifying your hashtags all the time. Don't use the same hashtags all the time. With our hashtag manager, you can create collections for hashtags that you're use from time to time for different pieces of content, but you want to make sure that you're always diversifying. If you use the same, if you're tapping into the same hashtags again and again, you're only tapping into the same audience. So make sure that you're always diversifying your hashtags. And yes, there's no such thing as shadow banning. Okay. Oh. I see a lot of handles. Okay, I'll answer one more question. Oh, this was a great question. Oh, Riza. So Riza said, is it okay to have two themes for an account? For example, my personal account that is separate from my business account is geared towards entrepreneur and real estate. Actually, hold on. For my personal account, okay. Two themes for an account. My personal account that is separate. I think you mean, actually, I must have read this wrong. Is it okay to have two themes for an account? My personal account that is separate from my business account is geared towards entrepreneur and real estate. Actually, yeah, I mean, entrepreneur and real estate, I feel like those fall in line with the same kind of theme. I mean, they're not the same thing, but as you working in real estate, you're also kind of like tapping into your entrepreneurial, like an entrepreneurial theme. So I think it's really great to have two themes for that. I've seen a lot of people do like, health and wellness, but I also feel like you have to make sure that you tap into what's best performing. So if you see that if your real estate posts don't do as well as your entrepreneur or vice versa, then you have to make sure that you're constantly giving your audience what they want to see based on what's best performing. You don't want to like overwhelm them with too much. So that way you make sure that you're like tapping into your niche. Those two themes, entrepreneur and real estate, they still fall in line very similar to me. But if you're doing like real estate and fitness, then I feel like you would have to do two different Instagram accounts, if that makes sense. So yeah. All right. Let's do one more question. One more. Okay. Brianna, if I'm a media outlet, should I still worry about posting too much? I mentioned my content is heavily based on the news stream and throughout the day. Actually, that's very different. I see that there's like a lot of media sites that post very frequently, and I think that's kind of the exception for media sites. For media sites, I know that I'm going to be getting constant content from them, so I think it's a little bit different for media sites. If you are a brand that's offering me a product or an influencer and you're overwhelming me with a lot of content, then I'm probably going to tune out. But if I am tuning into you as a media site because I'm expecting to get like my most recent like news media from you, then I'm going to expect you to post a lot of content. That's just like what I'm signing up for. So I think like even then you might want to post like up to 5 of your highlights a day and then like everything else within your stories. Think of your stories as your like, you can throw everything in there. That you don't have to worry about your grid. You can just like post as much there, but also keep it limited to like, if you're a news site, then I would say probably like leave it up to 12 and don't go crazy. If I see like tiny little like lines within the top of the stories and there's just like way too much, I'm just going to tune out. But as a media site, I know that I'm signing up for that much content, then I think it's okay. All right. One more question that I need to answer. What do I think of engagement pods? please don't do engagement pods, guys. Engagement pods are a no-no. You should always, if you're already creating engaging content, you shouldn't be worrying about engagement pods. I understand that there was like the whole reason with oh, Jane Coe raised her hand. Hi. Jane, I'll answer your question shortly. But basically, yes, engagement pods are a no-no. You are just creating, how would I say it? You're just creating fake engagement. It is a fake engagement in a sense, because you're constantly having the same people, 15 people or 12 people engage in your content within the first 15 minutes. And sometimes it'll just be those people. So you want to make sure that when you're actually engaging with people, or you're engaging with your audience, you're engaging with the people that even brands, especially if you're an influencer, that brands know that you're gonna actually, you're trying, like you can already pull engagement from, instead of forcing it. So engagement pods are not great at all. I've seen a lot of like people who've tried to engage with us, who've tried to work with us, and they're using engagement pods, and then I'll see the same 15 people comment on all their posts all the time, like, oh my God, so cute, oh my God, like love this, blah blah blah. And then it is just I know that they're an engagement pod. So I'll definitely, don't do engagement pods. Don't buy engagement. Don't buy followers. Don't do any of that. Please don't do any of that. It's the worst thing you can do for your Instagram. So yes, don't do that. Jane, I don't know if you had a question, but I saw you raised your hand. Um, I don't know if she's still on here. But okay, cool. I don't think Jane had a question. No. Okay. All right, guys. Oh, somebody asked if this can be in Spanish. Unfortunately, it won't be in Spanish. I do speak Spanish, but I don't have the presentation in Spanish. If you have any questions in Spanish, feel free to DM at Planoly. I'll try to respond. But again, this will be all replayed, sent to you guys right to your Instagram, to your emails. And then we'll see you next month for the next webinar. I hope that you guys are all tuning in. And then again, all questions send into Planoly, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.